Right. So we will just start already because we have a lot to cover, and people just dribble in when they can. That won't be a problem. So welcome everyone who is here right on time to the 14th class of the course. Well, you missed the first 10. No. The 4th class of the Dutch Advanced course. It's a busy one. We're going to do it a lot today, I think. Yeah, no, it's quite a lot, and hopefully useful things. Today we're mostly going to talk about hulpwerkwoorden. Words like shoulda, woulda, coulda. Very useful words, people use a lot, and they're a bit weird in Dutch. And why we are focusing on them is to be better able to exist in the world, of course. Specifically, to be able to tell and receive directions. So be able to tell people where to go, and be able to know if someone in Dutch tells you where to go, how to know where to go. Probably the biggest use case of that is accidentally or on purposely having your phone in Dutch and the Google Maps telling you where to go in Dutch. And the other thing is listening to the announcers on the central station, which we will practice. It's a good listening exercise. And otherwise, we will go through hulpwerkwoorden, do some exercises, and hopefully learn a lot along the way. Okay, so let us begin with first the homework of lesson 16, lesson 13, which I assume you all did. Oh yeah, one thing to note still. Eva is also not able to mention it to join us today, as I thought her thesis had to be handed in last week, but this week. So again, very busy. I assume you are all also busy. Hope you're doing well on your exams, etc. And if not, that you're just doing well in general. So let's start with the first exercise. Constructing the past participle in these questions. I will just go through these myself because it's a kind of straightforward exercise and I'd rather have more point of view on the other ones. So, the first one. Wij zijn vorig jaar op vakantie. Oh, wij zijn vorig jaar naar Frankrijk op vakantie. Well, correct form past participle of zijn is of course geweest. We have been to France on vacation last year, sorry. Don't go on vacation right now. Ik heb nog geen boodschappen. Past participle doen.
Quick
Yes.
question. Do you want to record this?
I am recording it, but through different means. So maybe you saw an NDI thing on the top, or something, maybe. But I am recording it. It is good to check it, if it is actually on record. It is, yes. And I just tested with last meeting, last class before this, and it worked swimmingly. But thank you for bringing it to my attention, because I did forget it last time. So, de past participle, geweest. Ik heb nog geen boodschappen well, gedaan. I haven't done any groceries yet. Or I haven't done groceries yet. Heb jij je huiswerk al? Maken. So the first two were irregular, and this one is regular. We need to find the stem of maken, which is maak, M-A-A-K. Add a T at the end, because K is in sections of ketchup. And then add ge in front. Gemaakt. Heb je je huiswerk al gemaakt? Have you done your homework already? 4. Hij heeft heel lekker voor ons koken. Koken is also regular, so the stem is coke with double O. K is in sections of ketchup. En dan gekookt. Straightforward. And then finally, zij heeft maar meteen haar baas bellen. Bellen is also regular, and as we noted last week, it starts with the BE, but it is emphasized, not unemphasized. Ze heeft meteen haar baas gebeld. L is not in sections of ketchup. She immediately called her boss, translation. Okay, de volgende opgave is een stuk nuttiger. The next exercise is a lot more useful to discuss. And I'd like to see what you got. So, for the first one, de straten zijn nat omdat het, so use the past simple or the present simple it said. I think it meant, oh yeah, this is pretty hairy. It should be present perfect, of course. Although I don't know, I hope you picked up on that, and if not, alas. That's not very handy to mix those two up. I'm using the wrong mouse. This is why this took a long time. Apologies. Well, then I will also just go through this one because it's not fair to expect you to see through my mistakes. De straten zijn nat omdat het. The streets are wet because it geregend heeft or heeft geregend. So as I think I noted last week, sometimes people do this the other way around. So sometimes I told you the rule is past participle and then other verb. Sometimes people turn those around. So, but this is a different case. Okay, I'm confusing. Apologies. Omdat het heeft geregend is the most straightforwardly correct, right? Conjugated verb, past participle. Bam. And this geregend heeft, people say that. I probably would say that sometimes. But I would not expect you to notice that as correct. It means the streets are wet because it has rained. And you use the present perfect here because it is an effect that still affects the present. The streets are wet because of something. That's the most straightforward case of present perfect you can have. Het afgelopen zomer warm and possibly so past simple or present perfect. And you would use zijn here, was here, sorry, the past simple, because it's describing a period in the past. So, het was afgelopen zomer warm. Technically, you could of course also use the present perfect if it has some effect on the present, but it is not mentioned. So, if it said, oh, het is afgelopen zomer warm geweest en daarom is de oogst mislukt. And that's why the crops failed, or the harvest failed this year. So that has an effect on the present, but it's not mentioned. So. Ze hebben de politie gebeld toen ze de dief. Well, this one's pretty straightforward. There's toen, so you zagen. They called the police when they saw the thief. 4. Wie? Mijn telefoon. I put heeft gepakt here because in general, if it's not clear, Dutch people will prefer the present perfect. But pakte, just the past simple, is also perfectly fine. Wie pakte mijn telefoon? The difference here in meaning would be wie heeft mijn telefoon gepakt is you would say that in the immediate present when you notice, oh, my phone is gone, who took it? Who took my phone? Because it affects you right now, right? If you are like going on a trip and you suddenly realize, oh shit, I forgot my phone, and then you're asking your family members, oh, did any of you remember to take my phone? So, wie pakte mijn telefoon ook alweer? Who took it? Because someone took it, I just don't remember. So it doesn't really have an effect on the canon of the sentence, as in, okay, the phone has been taken. It's just a matter of who. It doesn't have a particular effect. So, heeft gepakt is the most straightforward. Finally, hoe het bezoek aan het museum. So here, how the visit to the museum, you would put was. So how was the visit? Because it does not really have an immediate effect. What your experience was on the museum trip, does probably not have an immediate effect on the present circumstances of your being. It could be is geweest. Hoe is het bezoek aan het museum geweest? But that would imply that maybe the museum trip was very, who shook you to your core and made you see things in a different light. Oh, how was it? But usually it's just a museum trip, so probably not such dire consequences.
Hey,
Yes.
Thomas, just a question, just to jump in this last one. Like the second sentence, is it is geweest or was geweest? Or maakt niet uit.
The second one, twee? Oh yeah, no,
Ja?
I would just
Ja,
put
twee.
was, only was.
Was.
Yeah,
Oké.
yeah, not
Dankjewel.
was geweest indeed. All right.
Wait, can I ask a clarifying question for number 2? Is the answer het was afgelopen zomer warm?
Yes, that is indeed the answer.
And then for 5, is it hoe was het bezoek aan het museum?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks for asking. All right, now you can't escape this anymore because this actually was clear, I hope. So now I will ask you, and so the question here, do you have to use the future or the present perfect? The future simple or the present perfect, not the future perfect. That is a thing, and we will get to that today, but it isn't often used. So, first one, Peter, morgen de dokter. Judy, could you?
Yes, Peter zal morgen de dokter
Heel goed.
bellen.
Oh, that is indeed in almost everything, but it's very good, yes. Peter zal morgen dokter bellen of Peter gaat morgen dokter bellen, indeed. Very good. Okay, 2. Wij nog nooit een stroopwafel. Alice. I always forget which one it is. Could you remind me?
Yes, Alice. We hebben nog nooit een stroopwafel
Very good,
gegeten.
indeed. It with nooit means never. You would probably not use the future simple. We will never. Nog nooit. You cannot use it. If it says nooit, you could use it, but we haven't ever eaten a stroopwafel. You can't make a future tense of that. 3. Bijan.
You can hear me, yes?
Yes.
Zal jij volgend jaar een auto
Yeah,
kopen?
very good. I would probably use ga here, but zal is also works.
Ga.
Ga je volgend jaar auto kopen? Zal je volgend jaar auto kopen?
Quick question. On the first one, can I use zal? Peter zal morgen? Sorry,
Yes.
ga?
Yeah.
Morgen? Okay.
Those are equally, I would say, equally probable. And the third one, I would probably lean more towards gaan than zal. But zal, you can always use it. But if it's zal, it sounds more. If it's gaat, it sounds more like just question. And zal is more like yeah, will you do that? It's kind of implied. It's kind of implied that you will do it, and they're just kind of making sure that you're actually going to do it. 4. Hij haar nooit meer pijn. Sebastian. No? Audio troubles? Kitchen troubles? Little exercise, whatever. Elisa, could you do 4?
Hij gaat haar nooit meer pijn doen.
Yes. In this case, I would probably use zal, as it is a promise, probably, of him. It could also be kind of a statement of what he is going to do, but that is kind of hard to know about the future, of course, unless it's in fiction, for instance. It's kind of the end of the book. It's like, he will never hurt her again. He's never going to hurt her again, or something. Or you're talking about a criminal who is going to be put away for life, or something, kind of morbid. But otherwise, it probably would zal. 5. Ik. Het vandaag. So, Arie.
Yes, ik zal het vandaag doen.
Yes. Ik ga of ik zal het vandaag doen, indeed. Very good. So most of these were future tense, only one wasn't. You already practiced the past tense, the past perfect enough. Translations. Peter is going to call the doctor tomorrow. We have never eaten a stroopwafel before. So die nog nooit is never before. So that's why you can't make it in the future. Ga jij volgend jaar een auto kopen? Are you going to buy a car next year? He will never hurt her again. Meer. Or anymore. He will not hurt her anymore. I am going to or will do it today. Yes.
I'm sorry, Thomas. Quick question. For number 5, if you want to say, I did it today, can you use the past tense too? So it will be, ik heb het vandaag gedaan.
That's also very possible. This is indeed one of the cases where that's possible. I just didn't list it. And I didn't mention it, but you're very right. Ik heb het vandaag gedaan. I've done it today. Yes. Oké.
Thank you.
Dat was het huiswerk. Goed gedaan. Dan gaan we beginnen met de echte les. Prima goed op schema. Pretty good op schema. So, the verb of the week is not weten. Het is zwerven. Zwerven. Zwerven betekent ronddwalen, dus kind of roaming. Zwerver is someone who roams, and is a maybe not so nice term to use for someone who's homeless, a kind of hobo, basically. So it's not particularly nice. But it also means roaming around. So if you usually accompanied by the word around, or in Dutch, rond. Hij zwerft rond, wherever. So, it's ik zwerf, jij zwerft, het zwerft. En wij zwerven, jullie zwerven, zij zwerven. Then for the past tense, it's zwierf en zwierven. And then for voltooid deelwoord, so I had to look this up because I wasn't sure, because it sounds kind of wild. Heb gezworven, hebt gezworven en heeft gezworven. For once, it's heeft in the slides. Pay attention to this time. And then it's wij, jullie, zij hebben gezworven. Again, usually accompanied with the word rond. Usually also placed right in front of it. Rondzwerven, rondgezworven. That's one word. We'll get to these kind of compound verbs in lesson 6 or 17. But for now, we'll get into auxiliary verbs, hulpwerkwoorden. We've already seen some of those. Hulpwerkwoorden zijn werkwoorden die het hoofdwerkwoord helpt. So it helps the main conjugated verb. Het neemt de plaats van de persoonsvorm in. En de persoonsvorm dan gaat naar het einde van de zin en wordt een infinitief. So it takes the place of the conjugated verb. And the conjugated verb becomes some infinitive and gets placed at the end of the sentence with the other verbs where they belong. Ik werk, easy, subject verb. Ik ga werken. Now we've already seen this, right? Subject verb and then infinitive. Ik eet morgen een wortel. I will eat a carrot tomorrow. Yeah, in English you can't say it like this. Or I eat a carrot tomorrow. And then it becomes, ik zal morgen een wortel eten. I will eat a carrot tomorrow. So, it's over the woordvolgorde, about the word order. It's not very complicated. You just need to know a few things. On top of, it goes at the end of the sentence. So usually the past participle is first in the list of other verbs, and then all the other verbs. It can also be at the end, it doesn't really matter, but just at the front or at the end. It just cannot be in the middle of all the other verbs, right? That's what you need to know. And what you need to know is that the verb kunnen, to be able to, or can, is at the start of the infinitives. So it's either directly at the start of all the other verbs when the past participle is at the end of the sentence, or it is directly after the past participle. You can't really change this around. And we will see some examples of this later. But it's pretty, I don't really know why this is, that this one always goes at the front, but it's a pretty solid rule, which are hard to come by in Dutch. So we should take it for granted. Here's some examples. Hij had beroofd kunnen worden. He could have been robbed, not robben. Maybe he could have been a footballer had he not been robbed, but he unfortunately is just robbed. Or de directeur heeft niet zo snel op het probleem kunnen reageren. The director was not able to react to the problem that quickly. So you can't say, maybe let's take the first sentence, it's shorter. You can also say, hij had, well, you cannot. Hij had kunnen worden beroofd. No, you can say that, yeah, you can. Hij had kunnen worden beroofd. Sounds a bit more informal, but you can place the past participle at the end. You cannot say any of the following. Hij had beroofd worden kunnen. No. Or hij had kunnen beroofd worden. Also not really done. Again, if you say that, people will understand you. And it's not wrong. It just sounds off. Just like when you put the direct object in the end when it could be better at the start. It sounds off, but it's still correct. If you don't want to care about sounding off, then forget all these other verb order stuff. If you do care, past participle, kunnen, the rest. There's also the verb worden here, which we'll get into lesson 6 or 17, 18. So late? One of these lessons. We'll talk about that in depth. We've all wat oude werkwoorden, hulpwerkwoorden zou ik zeggen. Some familiar old auxiliary verbs you've already seen, hopefully. You've probably seen the rest as well, but these ones should be familiar. Kunnen, moeten, willen, zullen en mogen. So in order from top to bottom, to be able to, must, want, shall and may. Kan ik een biertje hebben? Can I have a beer? Moet ik een biertje hebben? May I have a beer? Oh no, must I have a beer or do I have to have a beer? Wil ik een biertje hebben? Do I want to have a beer? Zal ik een biertje hebben? Shall I have a beer? Or mag ik een biertje hebben? May I have a beer? So these are familiar. These are one of the few irregular words in Dutch in the present simple. So kunnen, mogen, willen en zullen are all irregular to varying degrees. Only moeten is regular. So kunnen becomes kan en ik kan, jij kunt of jij kan. Mean approximately the same. I don't really know what the difference is. Hij, zij, het kan en wij, jullie, zij kunnen. For moeten is just moet, moeten, moeten. For mogen it's mag, mogen. Also easy. For willen it's wil, wilt. And then, and the last one it fails to be regular, wil. So it's not hij wilt, but hij wil. And willen. And then finally zullen, we already know, it's either zal, or zal. And then zullen. Now, those are familiar to you, and they're very useful, but they don't express the depth of human imagination or something. Wait, there's an exercise? No. This is an exercise for the beginner's course. Oops. So, in particular, we are going to focus in a lot more on the verb zullen, because it does weird things in the Dutch language. And the reason why we'll focus in on this is that a lot of auxiliary verbs, so the ones we mentioned at the start, should have, would have, could have, or should, would, and could, they don't translate really easily to Dutch. Or not, they do translate. We have our equivalents, but it's not like one-to-one as with the other one with like must and stuff. We need to, in Dutch it's not one-to-one. There's some particularities that we need to address. Zullen, as you know, is translated as shall or will. Example, schat. Schat, haal je de boodschappen? So, honey, will you get the groceries? And then you answer, yeah, zal ik doen. Yeah, I'll do that. Will do. However, the other way around doesn't always work. So will does not always get translated as zullen. It sometimes gets translated as gaan. So here, an example. We'll go to church this Sunday. You'll say, or we'll go to church this Sunday. We gaan deze zondag naar de kerk. In Dutch, you will never say, in English, I guess you could say, we're going to go to church this Sunday. Or we're going to go to church this Sunday. But in Dutch, you would never say, we gaan zondag naar de kerk gaan. That doesn't work. Zullen, will translates to zullen if you like kind of emphasize it, right? We will go to church this Sunday. Or we will go to church this Sunday. So help me God. We zullen deze zondag naar de kerk gaan. That's zullen in the present tense. Now, zullen in the present tense is pretty sensible. Well, yeah, it's also in the past tense. But it pretty straightforwardly corresponds to English things. The past tense, however, zullen, the past tense being zouden, is used as an auxiliary verb for other auxiliary verbs. So, but first let's talk about zullen or zouden now on its own. It roughly translates as would, and not as should. Well, it's would. Would is will, or yeah, the past tense of will, and shall, I guess, also the past tense of shall. So it makes sense, never mind. So zouden roughly is would in most cases. For example, jullie zeiden dat jullie het huiswerk zouden doen. You said that you would do the homework. So would makes sense. A common form where this corresponds easily to would is with would like. In Dutch, you say would like, you say ik zou graag willen. Of ik wil graag. Nee, ik zou graag willen. So, ik zou graag het museum willen bezoeken. I would like to visit the museum. So it's different from saying ik wil het museum bezoeken, which means I want to visit the museum. It's a lot more assertive. I would like is a lot more hedgy. Like, okay, yeah, I would like to do that, sure. And it sounds more formal in a way. Whoa, that's jumping ahead. Now, so here's the first instance where zouden does not translate to would. And where it, in a way, plays a supportive role, an auxiliary role, to another auxiliary verb, namely gaan. And together they translate to was going to. So, de bus zou langs de universiteit gaan, maar er werd aan de weg gewerkt. Here, gaan is not an auxiliary verb, it's just the good old, yeah, I don't know, big main verb, mainly to go. The bus was going to go past the university, but there was road work going on. So here, zou and gaan mean was going to pass. Here, gaan, in the second sentence, het zou gaan regenen, toch? The main sentence here is het gaat regenen, toch? And gaat here plays the auxiliary role, namely to make the future tense. If you add zou, it becomes a bit different. So instead of it is going to rain, it becomes it was going to rain, right? This is the same as saying het ging regenen. So just putting it in past tense. But you say het zou gaan regenen, you see quite often. In maybe it implies more that, oh yeah, wait, it should have rained, right? But it didn't. But also it will rain. Someone said to me in the past that it will rain, and I'm wanting to check it. As you see, this will get kind of messy. It will get even more messy. So please, if it's confusing, please stop me. Zouden is also often accompanied by the present perfect, and then it means something else again. If it is accompanied by a present perfect, it becomes the voorwaardelijke form, kind of the conditional. So this is how you you often express conditionals in Dutch. And they are often accompanied with words like if or unless or even, conditional words. An example. Ik zou naar huis zijn gegaan als ik enige vorm van zelfcontrole had. I would have gone home if I had any kind of self-control. I say here, advanced word, how to construct sentences here. In the second part of the sentence, als ik enige vorm van zelfcontrole had, you see it is a word als, subject, ik, and then a thing, enige vorm van zelfcontrole, and then the subject. And the enige vorm van zelfcontrole is the verb. Enige vorm van zelfcontrole here is the indirect object, as we learned about in the second lesson. The word if causes the word order to be different. We will look into this in more detail next lesson, so don't be spooked if you think, wow, Thomas is throwing around word order again, how dare he? But it is with a purpose. I'll just not dwell on it today. There's enough confusion already. Second example, without gaan. Hij zou mij een rondleiding van Utrecht gegeven hebben, maar hij had zich verslapen. He would have given me a tour of Utrecht, but he overslept. So here, you use present perfect together with zouden, and it becomes would have. And implies that something should have happened, but it didn't. Or, yeah, indeed. Zouden can also combine with kunnen. It's such a versatile word. Together they form the word could. So kunnen in the past tense, kunnen is can, is be able to. But if you just make it the past tense, konden, I think I have a slide on that. It does not translate as could most of the time. So here's in the bottom, I say that. So together with zouden, it becomes kunnen. Dat zou kunnen, that could be the case. Zou je mij dat kunnen sturen? Could you send me that? Often a form that is presented in, zou je me een tikkie kunnen sturen? Could you send me a tikkie? Echter, I'm just leaving the slide, how lazy. De verleden tijd van kunnen wordt niet altijd vertaald als could. So, konden does not translate as could always, but it can. That's the tricky part. Het kon niet. It was not possible. So in English, you have two words for that sort of mean the same thing. That correspond to the same word in Dutch. So kunnen in Dutch means can and to be able to. And those things sort of mean the same thing in English, but also not really. And so in Dutch, they also don't really correspond, but the way they correspond is not the same weirdness. So zouden kunnen is not always could, and konden is not always to be able to, or in the past tense. Messy. Het kon niet, it was not possible. Hij kon de moord niet hebben gepleegd. He could not have committed the murder. So kon, kunnen, met hebben, the past perfect, is usually could have, or zouden kunnen, and the past perfect is also could have. Messy, but we'll get through it.
Thomas, can I stop you and ask a question?
Of course, Michelle.
So this is Michelle. When you say the past perfect, so with zouden plus the past perfect.
Oh, I say past perfect. Ooh, I should have said present perfect.
No. Present
yes.
perfect. I just messed up. But when you do that, we're not making the past. We're not making the helping verb for the present perfect agree with the subject?
Indeed, because zouden already does that.
So that's just, so it's the infinitive of that auxiliary plus the past participle.
Indeed, very good. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
No, that is indeed good to clarify. Here, present perfect. So here we have ik zou naar huis zijn gegaan. So it is the is gegaan would be the ik ben naar huis gegaan would be the normal sentence. But we add then the auxiliary zou, like I would have gone home. Ik zou naar huis zijn gegaan. And in English this is also, I guess, the same. I have gone home, or I've gone home. I would have gone home. But in English, the have is always kind of the same, except with he. So I think that would be clearer to see. He has gone home. He would have gone home. So it is the same as in English. Yes. All right. Then zouden can also combine with moeten, and then it means should. I guess it is pretty similar to English. No, it is not similar to English because in English you would probably have the must past. Is should the past simple of must? Maybe, sort of. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't. It means a bit of a different thing. But importantly, the past simple of moeten, moesten, just means that you had to do something in the past. And zouden and moeten together means that, yeah, you should do something. Just like how it is in English. The difference between zouden moeten and moeten is zouden moeten is more of an advice. It's like you should do that. It's a kind of strong advice. And moeten is law-like, right? You have to do this. De trein zou er nu moeten zijn. The train should be here by now. If you say the train moet er nu zijn, the train has to be here now. You probably don't have that kind of control over the train schedule. If you have, then you probably make a very powerful person in the Netherlands. Hij zou niet voor de lijn moeten staan. He shouldn't stand over the line. We don't have a yellow line in Dutch, just a white line on the tracks. And not on the tracks, but on the perron. I'm not sure what the word is. 9 euros. Whatever. You shouldn't stand over that line, is what I'm saying. Then we have even more, but we have left the realm of zouden. So those are all the combinations you can make with zouden, and we use zouden to make all these words that English has. We make it on our own way. We can also use hadden to make other word combinations. Notably, we don't use hadden in the past perfect sense. So hadden is the past simple of hebben. So ik heb een ei, ik had een ei, whatever. Ik had een wortel. I had. It's the same word practically. And you can use that to make the past perfect, which is the present perfect as viewed from a point in the past. So, ik had in mijn jeugd hard gewerkt. Ik had whatever, and then past participle. You form it the same way. You usually use it when telling a story to someone. Hadden here just is the past simple of hebben. So hadden plus kunnen means could have. That's the most important lesson. Also sort of conditional. It's also used with als or als is implied. We hadden de bus kunnen halen als we zouden hebben gerend. We could have caught the bus if we would have run. That's kind of implied, right? Or if we would have left earlier, etc., etc. Note again, kunnen is in front of halen, not the other way around. You wouldn't say, we hadden de bus halen kunnen. That doesn't sound right. Other example, het had erger kunnen zijn. It could have been worse. You could make this a weird form of the past with the past perfect. Het had erger geweest kunnen zijn. It could have had been worse, I guess, would be the translation. Could have had been, could had, yeah. So as you see in English, you wouldn't do that. In Dutch, you wouldn't do that. Instead of very specialized situations, which I won't bother you with. I'm already bothering you with enough combinations. So this is the last one. Hadden met moeten is should have. Ik had eerder weg moeten gaan. I should have left earlier. De conducteur had later moeten fluiten. The conductor should have blown their whistle later. And then I would have been able to make the train. Yeah. So, I have here, there's a small overview in your booklet. Hope that is useful. If you think, wow, this is confusing. Just look here and I think, okay. That makes sense. It does have a misspelling. It says kunnen is anal too, which is kind of unfortunate, but I hope you can guess what the intended meaning is. Then, so let's practice a bit together, and then you can practice on your own and we'll check. Here we have some exercises. I will just ask you if you have an idea. How would you translate this in Dutch? We will not allow swearing. For your information, swearing is vloeken. Vloeken. So, anyone have an idea how to translate this? Oh, and allow is toestaan. Toestaan. Maybe it's easier if I just... oh, yeah. Leonie? Yes, you may give the answer if you want.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Now, okay. How do you say? What was swearing? Vloeken. Okay, maybe wij zullen niet vloeken toestaan. Toestaan vloeken.
Yeah, that's very good. The exact place of niet is indeed kind of tricky, and we will go over that in the next lesson probably. But that's good. Yeah, wij zullen vloeken niet toestaan. We zullen vloeken niet toestaan. I think you would say, because it's negate. You usually put niet in front of the thing you're negating, and here it is the allowing. So we zullen vloeken niet toestaan.
Okay.
And otherwise you're saying we will allow not swearing, which sort of similar. But, okay, very good. Shall I go first? First is eerst. Anyone an idea? Michelle?
Zal ik eerst gaan?
Perfect. I don't have the answers on the slide, but that's very good. Zal ik eerst gaan? Yes. You could have applied for a job at McDonald's. Applied is... just fill it in English, and a job is een baan. Een baan bij McDonald's. All right. Leonie again? Or, yeah? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else wants.
Go for it.
Maybe jij had kunnen apply een baan at McDonald's?
Ja, that's very good. Jij had kunnen solliciteren voor een baan bij McDonald's. So applying is solliciteren. It's a bit of a mouthful. Would that be a good solution? Anyone? I didn't provide the solutions, but Bijan?
Zou dat een goede solution zijn?
Perfect, yes. Solution is oplossing.
What?
Zou dat een goede oplossing zijn? And just like in English, it both means like the answer to a problem and also like a solution, something that is dissolved in something else. Would that be a good solution? Zou dat een goede oplossing zijn? So, depending on whether you're in a chemistry lab or somewhere else, depends the meaning. Okay, great. Then I would like you to do exercise 1 before we go to the break. Here are some hints. It's also just translating into Dutch. If you have some other words that you don't know that you would like to know, just ask. I'll give you 10-ish minutes.
Thomas, oh, never mind. I can see it now.
You're welcome.
On which page is the exercise?
Page 17.
Okay.
Yes, and with the fourth hint, I mean that hebben will be the finite verb, and over is a miscellaneous word.
Thomas, I have a question actually,
Yeah, no problem.
which is for the dictionary. With Latin zien, I had also gotten with Google Translate tonen.
Yes, that is also a possibility, but that would be aantonen.
Aantonen?
Well, I guess it's tonen. Yeah, you can use tonen. I'll leave it at that.
So I'll cross that out. I'll use the other one.
There's a bit of a difficulty with how aan works there, but that's something we'll get into later. To briefly answer your question, Michelle, aantonen is more like, or tonen is more like demonstrate, and laten zien is more like show.
Perfect, thanks.
Or maybe a useful tip as well that I didn't mention, would love to, similar to I would like to. I would like to is ik zou graag willen. And I would love to is probably best translated as ik zou heel graag willen, ik zou erg graag willen. You don't really have a separate thing for that. So we're almost at time. How is everyone doing? Cool. I can't remember if I... Oh, yes, I did put the answers to the exercises. Okay, good. I didn't animate them, unfortunately. Alas. Alright, then it is time. Then we will quickly discuss and then have a break. So the first one, excuse me. Could you show me the way? Veronica?
Ja. Sorry, zou je kunnen me de weg laten zien? I don't know if the order is
Yes, all
correct.
the words are correct, but indeed kunnen needs to go at the end with all the other adjectives at the first. So,
Okay.
zou je me de weg kunnen laten zien? Otherwise, very good.
Okay.
Perfect. So there's a lot of adjectives at the end, kunnen laten zien, but that help, infinitive, sorry. But very good. Okay, 2. When will the train arrive? Yes?
Thomas, can you repeat?
Yes, I will show it in a bit, but I put all the answers on the slide in one go.
Perfect, dankjewel.
Yeah, I'll show them and then I'll repeat them as well. So Rafaela, could you do the second one maybe? Rafaela, could you? Yes.
Wanneer arriveert de trein?
Yes, wanneer arriveert de trein? Of wanneer zal de trein arriveren? Of wanneer zal de trein er zijn? You probably would hear that more, but it's good to know more words. Very good. Alexandra, could you do 3?
Misschien hadden wij meer kunnen doen.
Perfect. Very good. Iona, could you do 4?
We weren't sure about this one, but ik zou van A Space Odyssey houden kijken, maar ik heb niet 3 uur over.
Yes, that was very good, and indeed I didn't tell you what would love to is, so that's kind of difficult to translate. Maar ik zou heel graag A Space Odyssey willen kijken.
Nee, ja.
Maar ik heb geen 3 uur over, so that's very good. Alright, then as always, Ada, could you do this?
Take Ada's going.
Okay, sorry, ik zou net dat weten.
Could you repeat it?
Okay, sorry, ik zou net dat weten.
Yes. Indeed, I didn't tell you how to use need yet, but ik zou dat niet weten. Would be good. But otherwise, very good. Yannick?
The visser was sang or zag? No. Sang toen we ontmoeten. Muten? How's it pronounced? Moten.
Yes.
Oh God.
Was
that right?
In the right direction. My hint wasn't very helpful. That's also why. I needed to specify that the simple past was for the was singing part, but I didn't. So that's my fault. If you were to apply that, then you probably would have done correctly. So de visser zong, of toen we hem ontmoeten. Of wanneer we hem, ja, toen. You would use toen here. That was also what kind of my use simple past was referring to, that you have to use toen, but maybe obscure hint, probably. And I said that because you hadn't learned how to use like a continuous form yet, so you wouldn't have known how to translate was singing properly. So you could just say zong. But was aan het zingen, you could say. All right, final one. Sophie? It's also a pretty difficult one. So. I see you're unmuted, but I cannot hear you. Maybe, yes. Were you the one who had audio troubles? Maybe. I will skip you then. Liu? Could you do...
Okay, I'll try.
Good luck.
I have... Ik heb het niet verwachten dat hij heel kleine verschil zouden kunnen merken.
Yeah, pretty good. I think I think it's hard to say how it should be. Here is how I would have done it. Ik had niet verwacht dat hij zo'n klein verschil, zo is het verschil, either had kunnen merken, like you said, or kon merken. But it's very good. It's a difficult sentence. So let's go over all of them first. Thank you. Good pronunciation, by the way. The first one, excuse me, is pardon or sorry. Or if you want to be fancy, excuseer mij. Zou je me de weg kunnen laten zien? Or, not or, just that. When will the train arrive? Wanneer zal de trein arriveren? Of wanneer zal de trein er zijn? Perhaps we could have done more. Misschien hadden we meer kunnen doen. I would love to watch a Space Odyssey, but I don't have 3 hours to spare. Ik zou heel graag A Space Odyssey kijken. Or A Space Odyssey willen kijken. I think that's more appropriate. But I don't. Maar ik heb geen 3 uur over. Of ik heb niet 3 uur over. Again, niet will be next lesson or the one after that. Sorry, I would know that. Sorry, ik zou dat niet weten. Seems kind of dodging the question. Oh, no, I wouldn't know. The fisherman was singing when we met him. De visser zong toen we hem ontmoetten. And notice the double T here. And that is to distinguish it from the normal infinitive, because this is the past. T is in sexy soft ketchup, and therefore we add a T in the past simple. Looks kind of weird, but it is so we know that we're talking about the past if you read it. It's just a reading thing. And then finally, I did not expect that he could notice such a small difference. Ik had niet verwacht dat hij zo'n klein verschil kon merken of had kunnen merken. Yes, these are difficult sentences. Definitely because it also sometimes using words like dat and toen that kind of throw around the sentence structure that we haven't covered yet, which we'll do next week. Which will be very interesting next week, I hope. As I say by myself, it's a great lesson. All right, you really need a break. Let's break until 10 past, then we'll do the rest. If you have any questions in the meantime, as always, do not hesitate to ask.
Okay, Thomas, this is Michelle. I have a quick question, which is arriveren and aankomen. Do they mean different things?
No. Let's see. De trein komt om 3 uur aan. I think that would work. I didn't pick that one because it's a separable verb, and we haven't treated those yet.
Yes.
Arriveren is aankomen. You would probably use way more often. Arriveren is a bit more wordy.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's aankomen is very good.
And the other question I have is the en at the ends of words. Do you pronounce them or not? Because I feel like I hear you pronouncing them, but I feel like I was taught not to pronounce them.
Yeah, very good. So you do
like hebben or hebben.
So you always pronounce the e at least, but the n indeed. Depending on where you're from, you either kind of pronounce it, or you swallow it, or you don't do it. You don't even acknowledge its existence. So kunnen is how I teach you it, because it's like formally correct. Kunnen, laten, zien. With zien you would always do it, but with kunnen and laten you would more likely say kunnen laten zien. But with this can, descend. This is a bit derogative of me, but you can lead to saying, like, in an extreme sense, kunnen laten zien, and then if you don't swallow it at all, if you just or if you swallow it very much, like if you don't even attempt to pronounce it, it sounds really informal, and it's done in like Rotterdam or something. People or Brabant people don't really say the n. Where I'm from, in the north, people do say the n a lot more. So it's a regional thing.
Okay.
My advice to be as like normal Dutch as possible is to like not pronounce it, but keep the e short. So kunnen en laten.
Okay. And then the other thing is, whether you pronounce it or not, does that, like, it shows where you're from regionally, but does it also show where you're from in terms of how much education you have?
It is a bit socioeconomically related, yeah. So people who like in universities would probably pronounce the n a bit more. Well, it's not per se, yeah, it's indeed more like setting related and kind of education related.
Okay.
But I also have a professor, for instance, of mine who comes from Rotterdam, and he would say this, pardon, zou je me de weg kunnen laten zien? Which I think is sounds really, not very educated, but that's my bias against that accent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to let you go because I need 2 minutes, so I'll be back. Thanks.